Cavalry are insanely fun in Call of Dragons, so in this video, I want to give you a guide on how to use Emrys, a great primary hero for ambushing enemies deep behind the enemy lines, or for taking out flag builders, or even running something really tanky and charging into the enemy line. So stick around in this video for the things you really need to know. Pairings, talents, artifacts, and more. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today's video is sponsored by the makers of Call of Dragons. And when I saw how good Cavalry are, especially if you're a T5 player, I kind of wailed up like crazy, unlocked T5 Cavalry, and tried it out for myself, and I was really impressed. So I want to go over what I learned by using Emrys and Bakshi to give you the insights that I got, and there are some really important takeaways, things I wish I had known when working on this hero. So let's get things started, as we do with the commander guides, with the skills. But the first skill I want to show you is not actually on Emrys. The skill is actually on your cavalry unit itself. Now, I like to review these sorts of things because it's important to understand the way that your hero is going to work. It determines what talents you might use, etc. But most people don't know that cavalry have a skill too. It's called Unyielding Rush. Your march speed increases when approaching the target legion. After colliding with a ranged legion, the hero commanding this legion gains 1,000 rage. This effect can be triggered once every 12 seconds. So you can immediately use your active skills if you charge a ranged unit. And you get extra march speed, by the way. So this means you will get the active skill of your primary hero almost immediately on engaging either a marksman unit or on a mage unit or magic unit, okay? Those are ranged units. Both of them count. So this is important when we look at who you're going to pair with and what you're going to do. But let's review Emrys' skill now, because this is the 1,000 rage cost active skill of Emrys. It does 1,500 damage factor. You gotta love an active skill that's just simple. I mean, it hits you really hard. And if you're working on Emrys, by the way, of course you max the first skill before you proceed to the second skill, which makes it so that when your legion enters battle, they gain passion, increasing their rage accumulation speed by 40% for 5 seconds. So the speed with which you gain rage is boosted. This also means that rage abilities should be boosted as well for the amount of rage that you're getting. So this includes your sort of attacks to enemies. When you're being attacked, that grants you rage, and also other abilities, which we'll talk about, that give you rage should get this boost. Now, I would recommend maxing this second skill if you can before proceeding to unlock your third skill. Third skill, all cavalry units in Emrys' Legion gain 10% physical attack at base and 3% march speed. When maxed, that's 30% attack and 10% march speed. I mean, it's just a lot of punch. So remember, when we review the sort of things you can do with his talents, he has some really good punch already. Last but not least, all damage dealt by Emrys' Legion is increased by 10%. And you also deal 15% more skill damage when attacking targets that have been surrounded. So that means more than one thing is targeting the same thing as you. In addition, the expertise. When attacked, Emrys' Legion has a 20% chance to gain passion, increasing rage accumulation speed by 20% for 5 seconds. If Emrys' Legion already has passion, it is removed, granting 100 rage. This effect can be triggered once every 2 seconds. Wow. So if there are other ways you can get this passion buff, by the way, we definitely want to get it. We know that we've got that right over here. When Emrys' Legion enters battle, you're gaining passion. So there's 2 ways right here, and we'll talk more about buff synergy in a bit here. But these skills point to a hero that is obviously doing big damage. But hilariously, he does have the mobility tree. So let's talk about the talents here, because I went with a build that I'm lovingly calling the Speedy Boy. Now, look, my goal with this build is to run around and harass, and to take advantage of the fact that I don't have that many T5 Cavalry yet, so I can only go on a couple missions before I'm tapped out, which means I wasn't trying to make a tanky cavalry unit, which you can do and we'll talk about. I was trying to make a hit and run, and this works. You start by going for your overall attack, march speed, and then health. You, of course, take Balanced Heart on your way up. It's mandatory. All units in your Legion gain 1% attack, 5% march speed. From there, we go immediately into the mobility tree. We get 10% more march speed, and then when your Legion launches a normal attack, that is when you directly target an enemy, they have a 10% chance to gain haste, increasing your march speed by 30% for 5 seconds. And I went with more overall march speed, 10% of it. We are zoomy, baby. And when leaving buildings or resource points, your Legion gains a haste and vigor buff, increasing their march speed by 20% and their hit points by 5%. So we're going for a lot of haste-based abilities, and the extra 5% ain't bad for the health. From there, I wanted to grab the ability to get even more haste because I'm insane. Now, when I cast a rage skill, my Legion gains haste as well, increasing my march speed by 15% for 3 seconds. And here's the big synergy. When gaining haste, I also get keen, increasing my attack by 2.5% for 5 seconds. So I have a way to get haste over here. I have a way to get haste over here. I have a way to get haste over here. And I've run around the map and seen this keen buff popping all the time. Now, I don't think you can get multiple instances of keen to stack. I suppose I would have to test that. The goal with this one is just to get some extra attack, and it runs pretty regularly. The final pickup over here was this one. Increases march speed by 20% when your unit count is less than 50%. At this point, I want to escape the fight and get away. This leaves the final talent, and I went with Passing Shadows. When casting artifact skills, your Legion gains haste, which, by the way, gives you keen. Then also Shelter, increasing their march speed by 50% and defense 15% for 10 seconds. Can be triggered once every 90 seconds. Wow. Then from here, we double back to the Cavalry tree, where, by the way, you get even more march speed per point than you did in the Mobility tree. Mobility tree is 2% per point, but doesn't care about a unit type. Cavalry tree necessitates that you have Cavalry, which of course we do, and you're getting 15% for 5 points, and from there, I took another 2.5% attack. Now, the funny thing, and I'll have to investigate this, is that, I mean, here I just get a flat 2.5% attack for 5 points. Here, I'm getting the 2.5% attack, but it comes with a string attached. I have to activate trigger a haste effect to get it. And I wonder if I look over here, you see the overall attack I could get base over here is less, okay? It's about 2% total if I did this one. So, I don't know, you pay kind of a premium over here to get the extra 0.5% of attack than you did from other places. But I really wanted to get that extra punch. I suppose I could have got a smaller amount of attack and some more march speed over here if I wanted from Hasty March. That would have been reasonable. This would give me 1% attack total and 5% more march speed. That also would be a super reasonable pickup. The final talents I would take in this build, by the way, are right over here. High Spirits, launching a normal attack, has a chance to give you extra rage, which should, by the way, get boosted by your second skill, increasing your rage accumulation speed. And then from there, we have two options. One is Steady Pace. When you consist of all cavalry units, you gain a shield when you leave a building, so a player city for the most part. Or Perfect Ferocity. Your Legion gains synergy when entering battle, increasing hero skill damage. Yeah, that's the one. I want that. Because remember, I'm going to get instant activations of my active skills. Hero skill damage dealt for 10 seconds is insane. 15%. You absolutely want Perfect Ferocity. So that's what I'll do to finish off the Speedy Boy build. But from here, I want to show you the next build, which is a PvP-based build, and it's right over here. This still goes for a lot of march speed and utility and punch, but skips out on some of the more tanky things that we'll cover in just a minute here. So same foundation talents, but then we go right up the middle to start for the PvP tree. We take the 2% extra attack, 10% march speed, because I feel like, you want to get around with your calves. And then High Spirits, which again has synergy with that second skill. And I went with the aggressive route, Army of Valor. Very proactive, increases your damage by 1% every 10 seconds to a maximum of 3%. From there, I went for pure march speed, okay? 10% more march speed over here. Your Legion gains haste when taking skill damage, increasing their march speed by 20% for 5 seconds, triggered once every 10. And then take 2.5% less damage while marching, okay? And then lastly, when your Legion launches a normal attack in the field, they inflict defense break on the target, reducing their defense by 10% for 5 seconds. I love this debuff. It's very powerful. And you should trigger this on the enemy on sort of the very first turn. You get your 1,000 rage, and then the next turn you use your active skill. I believe that's the order in which that happens. So that's very brutal. The other tree we, of course, go for is the same thing we were talking about moments ago in the PvP tree. You start with the March speed, in my opinion. You get the base attack, which, by the way, generic attack boosts your normal attacks, your counter attacks, and also your skill damage. So we're just going for a lot of damage boost here. Then we go for high spirits again, which we've learned from support does stack with the other high spirits. And then I think you go for perfect ferocity, right? Same sort of a thing. So this is another way to get March speed that was a little bit different than the mobility tree. I personally kind of liked the mobility tree a bit more than the PvP tree, although this debuff is just really, really, really good. Breach Blade, I like a lot. Now from here, there's a tanky way to run Cavalry. This is your frontliner Cavalry that just charges in during a big push and tanks for the rest of the team. In this case, while speed is cool, damage mitigation is really the king. So what did I do? I went for, instead of speed in the foundation talents, defense. And then I went for hit points, of course. Then we start to go up the middle here, and we grab overall attack, boost of 2%. Then I wanted to boost my normal attack damage, rivalry. Now, I just finished saying I wanted to be tanky, but let me explain how I think this works. I think your normal attack damage boost here makes it so that you deal more damage when enemies target you, and you deal more damage when you directly target an enemy. That's how this works in the predecessor to this game, which is Rise of Kingdoms. If you think it doesn't work that way, or you want to be even more tanky, of course, just go for the defense, and that's a perfectly fine pickup. But I figure that lots of people are targeting you, so if boosting this over here makes it so you're also doing more counterattack damage, I think you're in a really good spot. Now, I still wanted to get high spirits, which is extra rage. Theoretically, if lots of people are targeting you, you might not need high spirits, and you could go for overall health. It's an option that you could run. And then from there, I'm going for luck of the draw. When your legion launches a counterattack in the field, they have a 10% chance to reduce all damage taken by 1%. This is giving you a maximum of 3%, and it lasts for 20 seconds. So if you're going to tank, this is the route that you go. And the way that I wanted to get more March speed is kind of up the middle here in the last bit of this tanky boy PvP tree. So first we start with Fearless, increasing your counterattack damage in the field. Then we go and get Avoidance. So when you get hit with skill damage, you're going to go faster. Because you're charging into the enemy, you're going to get hit with skill damage. And then Charge Ahead. Your legion takes less damage when marching. I figure you're taking damage on your way to the enemy. Let's reduce the amount of damage you're taking. And also, because you're trying to be tanky, we take Blessing of Fury. Casting rage skills gains vigor, increasing your hit points by 10% for 5 seconds, and that can trigger once every 30 seconds. Then from here, we go into the Cavalry tree. You can get 15% March speed. You take 4% less hero skill damage. You can go for several options here. Taking less normal attack damage, I think, is the way you go. All Conquering, because you're trying to be tanky. And I think you go for steady pace. When you leave a building, which is basically a city, you get a shield factor of 600 for 60 seconds. I think this works really well in flag-to-flag combat, where you're going to pop out of a city, potentially surprise your enemies, and then have a shield for the start of the fight. I think that's a good play. I'll have to play around with this more to see how I really feel. It could just be that Perfect Ferocity is the way to go, and that would also be super, super reasonable. There are, in all honesty, a lot of other things you could do to mess around with these talent builds and to do some really powerful effects. Like, for example, over here, you can do more hero skill damage, and over here, you can do more hero skill damage. It could be that you prioritize the free activations of your active skill from your cavalry unit and forego getting high spirits, which is the sort of follow-up rage gain. I kind of figure that maybe your fight will end right after that first round of active skills, but if that's true, you're already winning anyways. Like, did you need to boost the skill damage more? I like the idea of getting to your next activation extremely fast, especially because with Emrys, that should be a boosted gain by 40%. So those are the talents that I sort of enjoyed using right over here in the Speedy Boy build. as a ambusher. But what heroes do you pair with to make that really work? Well, you have several options. The base option that I used is to go Emmy with Bakshi. All right, it's the two legendary cavalry commanders. We ran around with that and had a damn good time. Let me tell you, you max the first skill on Bakshi and you're in a pretty good spot for starting to use him. Unfortunately, the second skill is peacekeeping, but the rest of his skills are super relevant. The other extremely obvious option is going to be the epic quality Alistair. Now, Alistair has some decent damage. It also is area of effect damage, which is super valuable. There's a number of situations where this is good, even in hit and run. So if you're ambushing individual marches going from one place to another, not as good. But if you're going up against a flag and trying to take down a bunch of people that are either destroying or building a flag, this is a really cool effect. The second skill gives you health and attack. The next skill is for rallying only, so it doesn't really matter. The next skill makes it so that when you have more than 50% of units remaining, you have a 20% chance to gain riposte and passion when launching your normal attacks, increasing your counterattack damage dealt by 30% and your rage accumulation speed by 30% for 3 seconds. Hello? So the rage accumulation effects between Emrys and Alistair should stack, and that's a lot of rage gain, man. So I think they work together pretty well. Lastly, cavalry units led by Alistair deal 10% more normal attack damage and take 10% less damage. Bro is tanky. 10% less damage taken is very, very tanky. This is really, really good for running around in the field as a more tanky option, as opposed to the pure damage route that I was going with my Bakshi over here. Now, the final option that I think is super strong is to run Hosk. Emrys Hosk would be what I would recommend for your sort of tanky boy combo, where you're running in and you're trying to truly tank the brute force of the enemy. Not only do you get more units, which is good, but you're also buffing yourself several different ways, and every time you get a buff, your normal attack crit rate is boosted, and your counterattack crit rate is boosted, and that starts to stack up. I don't exactly love the sort of active skill here on Hosk lasting for 5 seconds, but that's why I think he's a good pair for a tanky run into the enemy march rather than an ambushing style march, which is what I've been running. But Hosk works really, really well if you're going to be tanking. The other hero that works if you're tanking, and you would be surprised, is Thea. Thea can do some scary stuff, man, especially if you're using Emrys and Thea. And, you know, you could use cavalry, like your base cavalry, but if your special unit is the Eagles from the Spring Wardens, holy cow, it is scary. So what does Thea do? Well, she's giving you a shield. So there's some weird anti-synergy here with, like, Emrys is boosting your skill damage and Thea's doing shields, but she does give you 15% attack. She does make your next skill activation do more damage, by the way. And she does also make it so you take less hero skill damage, tanky ability there. From there, you get 20% defense, and if you were using Eagles as your cavalry unit, your attack is also boosted by 10%, and their march speed is boosted by 20%. I mean, I've literally seen these Eagles soaring around the map, and it's crazy. And finally, whenever you gain a shield, your attack is boosted by 10%, up to a maximum of 30%, so presumably that stacks. And this would have an interesting synergy with the tanky boy combination I was describing earlier, if you pick that talent that gives you a shield when you leave a city. So that would trigger this effect, giving you 10% attack right off the rip. You immediately should target a ranged unit, which gives you your skill cycle activation, which brings you up to 20% attack. Okay, and it's very fast how quickly you're going to start to gain this attack boost if you run a tanky route. Finally, this grants a shield to 2 nearby legions when it's expertised, and absorbs a large amount of damage for your shield over the course of the 5 seconds. All right, so shielding nearby units is pretty damn good in a tanky cavalry charge. I haven't used this combo myself, but I've seen people flying around with it, and it is strong. Make no doubt about it. So if you're into some of these combos I've described, you're on board with running Emrys, you pick your talents, what artifact do you choose? And let me tell you, I've had an interesting time. When we go to the artifacts, there is an artifact that I thought would be really, really good for ambushing. And that is, of course, the storm arrows, which lets you teleport your march. And after you teleport, you get your damage dealt boost of 24%. But here's the problem I had with storm arrows. You see, as you skill it up, you gain extra range. You can teleport further. So here I am thinking I'm so sneaky, I did an ambush and I would teleport over a river to get away from the enemy. Little did I know that my range doesn't go over the river. So that was a bit of a rip. Storm arrows are cool for going literally up elevation. You can scale a mountain. But until you get more levels on this thing, I found it to be only okay. If you need the utility, it is God tier. But when you don't need the utility, it was really unimpressive to me compared to your other options. So what are your other options at the legendary tier? Well, the very best option, as I described in my legendary artifact video, the top 3, the Kingslayer is one of the best artifacts in the game. If you're running a tanky build or even a damage build, I feel like this is the way to go. It gives you cavalry unit attack and legion attack on your 2 dust and star-based abilities over here. And also, it deals damage to up to 5 enemy legions, a maximum of 3,600 damage factor, and the targets take 15% less damage, by the way, per additional target hit. So the more stuff you hit, the less any one target takes, but of course, your overall damage is going up. And if the target is another Lord's Legion that has fewer than 10% of units remaining, it's immediately defeated. That's dumb. That's stupid powerful. So Kingslayer is, in my opinion, your very best option all around, no matter what you're doing. But the other option you have at the legendary tier, and you get this in Season 1 if you buy the Battle Pass, is Sorlin's Blade. Sorlin's Blade is also strong, and this is what I plan to change to. Why is that? Well, it gives you cavalry unit attack, but the star level gives you march speed. So for the ambush plan I've been on, it's good, and it deals damage. Rage cost of 600 to hit enemies, 2 of them, in an arc, and that's 3,200 damage factor with 25% less damage per additional target. Little bit of a bummer that it drops by 25%, but it's a big amount of damage, and then you gain march speed for 20% for 10 seconds here. So I like what Sorlin's Blade is doing. This is what I plan to change to in our sort of next fight, assuming I don't get a Kingslayer, which hopefully I will. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Fingers crossed, probably won't. So if you're using an epic, I think there's one obvious easy choice here, and that's the Cloak of Stealth. And you should have a damn good time using your Cloak of Stealth. Look, the base thing that it's giving you is cavalry unit attack and legion attack, which is pretty damn cool. But the sort of backline operations you can run by stealthing your march and then going where you need to go is nuts. You can ambush the hell out of people, and it's very, very cool. I suppose the Centaur Bow is where you gotta go, man. So when you are on cooldown with your cloak and doing secret ambush operations behind enemy lines, you pop on your Centaur Bow, which is giving you defense. It's the only tanky option, actually, and this deals damage to up to 3 enemy legions in a designated circle. The damage factor is solid, 1,500. This is the route you go, I think. This is it. For your epic, fire it off every minute 30 damage dealer, if you don't have something like a Sorlin's Blade. And look, I mean, at 1,500 damage factor, when you max the skill on this, it could be pretty comparable to a base level Sorlin's Blade, which is going to hit 2 units and deal how much base damage factor? Let's revisit. We scroll on up here, Sorlin's Blade, base damage factor 1,600. All right. So you could even hit more targets with a really high level epic. The difference will be that this is giving you cavalry unit attack and march speed, and your bow over here is giving you defense and defense. So powerful effects, but you know, if you're certainly a T5 player and you're ambushing, you want all the attack you can get. You're sort of counting on your T5 at this point to already be enough punch, but most people don't have T5, bro. And if you're T4, the defense is pretty damn good. If we actually get a look at the cavalry unit itself, a part of the reason I really like to boost the attack on your cavalry is that look at this base stat that you're boosting. The 439 base attack on the cavalry unit at T5 is insane. So, point for point, I think you get more from attack than you do from defense. And that's a big insight. So if you enjoyed this video, do me a huge favor. Throw a like on here and consider subscribing to the channel. Hopefully you learned something new over the course of the video, and you were perhaps inspired to try out Cavalry and use an Emrys primary. I am loving my Cavalry. It is honestly some of the most fun open fielding I've been doing, and it is just freaking sweet when you ambush somebody. And I've got to feel bad for them, but man, it is sweet when you ambush somebody with Cavs. Now, if you're looking for more information about the best heroes in the game or the best artifacts in the game, great news for you. I'll have 2 cards in the end screen for that in just a second.